Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Boxing Day, Friday, Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're reading from Canto 4, Chapter 25, and the verse is text 2. Please repeat after me. Rudragitam Bhagavata Stotram Sarve Pracetā Japantaste Tapaste Pur Varshanam Ayutam Jale Rudragitam Bhagavata Stotram Sarve Pracetā Japantaste Tapaste Pur Varshanam Ayutam Jale. Stotram Sarve Pracetasaha Japantaste Tapaste Pur Varshanam Ayutam Jale. Japantaste tapaste pur. Mataji. Word for word translation. Rudra Gitam, the song sung by Lord Śiva. Bhagavataha, of the Lord. Stotram, prayer. Sarve, all. Pracetasaha, the princes known as the Pracetas. Japantaha, reciting. Te, all of them. Tapaha, austerity. Puhu, executed. Varshanam, of years. Ayutam, 10,000. Jale, within the water. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, please hear. All the Pracetā princes simply stood in the water for 10,000 years and recited the prayers given to them by Lord Śiva. Purport. Of course, in the modern age, one may be amazed how the princes could stand in the water for 10,000 years. However, living within air or living within water is the same process. One simply has to learn how to do it. The aquatics live within the water for their whole lifespan. Certain favorable conditions are created to enable them to live within the water. In those days, however, people used to live for 100,000 years. Out of so many years, if one could spare 10,000 years for the sake of austerity, he would be assured of success in his future life. This was not very astonishing. Although such a feat is impossible in this age, it was quite possible in Satya Yuga. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we're in the next chapter now, after the pastime, the meeting of the Pracetas with Lord Śiva and receiving that mantra, the Rudra Geet. So now, this is the practical application. Often we receive instructions, as His Grace Bhakta Edward Prabhu was saying yesterday, we receive instructions, and that's nice, that's very rare to get that opportunity to receive a spiritual instruction from a spiritual master. But sometimes we struggle to follow. It can be difficult. It's said that even if you can't execute the order of the spiritual master immediately, with that instruction comes empowerment. And if you just meditate constantly on that instruction and on how you're going to fulfill it, eventually the mercy will come and the opportunity will arise. Whenever I talk about that concept, I always remember there's one devotee I met in New Zealand. I was doing like a trip around the North Island when I was sort of like a new Bhakta, and I met so many disciples of His Holiness Devamrita Swami Maharaj, and I was sort of observing the outreach kind of centers that they had in New Zealand. It was so amazing. Everyone was so fired up there for preaching to the locals. They had like a bhakti loft and a bhakti lounge, all these different kinds of bhakti places where you could go and have like a dance party. You could get like a turmeric latte. which was offered to the Lord. All these different things. They served nice like bakery items and things. So yeah, they had heaps of people coming. They had yoga programs, all these things. I went down to the one in Wellington, and I got to do some cooking seva there with them. And the devotee who was basically running the kitchen there was absolutely insane. They were making like, there's some restaurants they use like chemistry to make like scientific food, like just that boggles your mind. Like most of the experience isn't actually in the eating, it's in like you look at the plate and it just looks incredible. And they're making all of these like, they made like deconstructed dumplings. I'd never even heard of that before. I'd never even tried constructed dumplings before. So yeah, we were making all these crazy things, and he was just blowing my mind, such an otherworldly level of cookery. And he was telling me that before he was initiated by His Holiness Devamrita Swami Maharaj, he didn't know how to make like, butter on toast. He didn't know how to make the most basic thing. He was never a cook. But the first thing that his spiritual master told him to do was cook for the devotees. And so he just started cooking and cooking and cooking and cooking. Whenever there was an opportunity to cook for the devotees, like His Grace Vanamali Prabhu. Yesterday we had the nicest prasadam. So nice. The whole day I was actually meditating on when I was going to get to eat my lunch as well. Such nice prasad. And the devotees get so inspired by prasadam. We'll talk a little bit more about the devotional practice of honoring prasadam later, but yeah, that devotee, I was so amazed to see someone who had gone from never using a saucepan before to making the most complex, elaborate menus, like 7 different items every Sunday for all these people with so many picky tastes. They change it every week. They do like Mexican, Asian street food, Thai, fusion, all of these different things, cuisines, and he was running the shop. So it was really amazing to meet someone like that. And we're seeing here the Pracetas also immediately, actually, they've received the instruction from their spiritual master, and they dive straight in, right? They get straight under the water, and they start absorbing their minds in that mantra which he gave to them. So in the purport, Prabhupada's explaining, like it's actually not such an amazing thing, 10,000 years underwater, back in Satya Yuga. We might think that's something to aspire towards, something extravagant like that. But I remember hearing in high school that there's actually the longest living creature that we have on planet Earth is a shark, and it lives for, I think, up to like 1,000 years or something crazy. And if you see a picture of this shark, it's so scary. It looks like it's decaying, like while it's still alive. Its skin is covered in moss, and its teeth look like rotten, and its eyes are like falling out basically. And they live for 1,000 years underwater as well, just like the Pracetas. But yeah, it's interesting. Apparently Prabhupada said that sometimes you meet surfers or people who live by the beach, and they seem so sattvic, so favorable. On books, I met one guy when we were in Pitt Street. We were doing some book distribution. I think we're going to go to Pitt Street today. Maybe we'll meet some more. But he was a free diver. So basically what they do is they get a big rock, and they just hold this big rock, and they just walk into the water. Like directly from the beach, from the shore, they walk carrying this big rock, and they're basically walking the whole way underwater on the seafloor. And then they get there, and they're just sort of deep underwater, and they just get to explore, walking around like a normal person, holding onto this big rock. And when it's time to go up, they drop the rock and they go back up. But some of them are doing it for like 10 minutes, walking around underwater. And it's like a spiritual practice. They have to really work hard to do a lot of pranayama, a lot of mindfulness to develop the capacity to do it. And I remember I was speaking to this guy, I was amazed, he was so present. Everyone you meet on books, they're scattered, they're running, they've got 10 things to do, they're shopping, the kids pulling their arm, they've got all these anxieties and troubles. But this guy was really present, and he didn't seem to have anything bothering him. He was very happy, and he was like, oh yeah, I've heard of Bhagavad Gita, I've read that book, And I was like, great, this guy's going to we'll give him a stack, he'll be sorted. I was talking to him for like 10 minutes. He was telling me all about his spiritual practices that he does so that he can do free diving. And right at the end, I was ready to, seal the deal. And he said, no, I'm not interested in Krishna, sorry. Really just like, simply, he wasn't like pushing against it, but he just, no matter what I said, he just wouldn't take a book. He was willing to just keep standing there and talking to me, but I was like, come on man, I gotta get these books out. It was amazing, and it reminded me of that verse, right? No matter how perfectly one performs their occupational duties, dharma svanushtita pumsam vishvaksena katha suya. If it doesn't develop attraction for katha, the Krishna katha, then it is just simply shrama eva hi kevalam, simply useless labor. He's doing all this austerity, all this tapasya, all of this yogic practice. Still, he's completely uninterested in hearing about Krishna. But we hear that te pustapaste juhuvu sasnorarya brahmanuchur nam granantyete. Someone who has the name of Krishna on their tongue, they should be, by intelligent persons, they should be understood to have already undergone all kinds of penances, austerities, study of the scriptures, cultivation of Aryan qualities. Just because they chant the holy name, you can accept that all of these things, past life, they've already done it. No matter who they are, even if they're swapacho, togari, and even if they're a dogita. So the Pracetas are, they're underwater doing their meditation. It's a very secluded, private place, so they can get really absorbed in this mantra. And interestingly, 10,000 years, I think, is it Satya Yuga the Pracetas are doing this? Is Dhruv Maharaj also another example of the level of austerity that one takes in Satya Yuga? And but for him, it only took 3 months, I'm pretty sure, right? 3 months. 10,000 years or 3 months. Dhruv Maharaj, what he did was, in the first 3 weeks, he only took flavorless fruits and berries and leaves, which he'd picked up in the forest. I think this is right. And then in the next maybe in the next 6 weeks, he only drank water, dry leaves, thank you. And then in the next 9 weeks, he only took water. And then in the next 12 weeks, he was just subsisting on air until finally he stopped breathing completely. So here we see that he's gradually increasing his austerity. He's not just settling for a simple, I'll just eat fruits and leaves for the rest of my life. He's increasing. So when we increase our tapasya, like as devotees in the modern Kali Yuga, modern society, we don't do much of this extravagant austerity. For us, what is the austerity? Anyone knows? What is the austerity of a Hare Krishna in 2025? Chanting the holy name. Is it austere? Yeah, that's difficult. Chanting sincerely and attentively. If we can wake up early as well, as much as possible before the Brahma Muhurta, you take a nice cold bath early in the morning, get ready for Mangal Arti. Just attending the whole morning program, right? This is the request of Srila Prabhupada, that everyone attends the morning program every day and finishes their rounds before heading out for the day. So finishing 16 rounds of japa just before, 7 or 9 o'clock if possible. If we can just do these 2 things, that's our tapasya. Following the 4 regulative principles, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. So it's pretty simple. But Dhruv Maharaj is showing us that if we increase our austerity, you set like how when we first started chanting, you chant just 1 round every day. And then when that becomes a habit, that becomes normal, you increase. Okay, now I'll jump to 4 rounds every day. And then you can actually make time. So maybe I'll increase. Now it feels normal, I can do 8 rounds, 16 rounds, like that. Dhruv Maharaj, he starts out just taking fruits and leaves, but then he's increasing every interval. Once that gets stable, then he'll increase, lift the bar, a little bit more service, a little bit more associating with devotees, a little bit, maybe we can even chant extra rounds. 16 rounds is just the minimum, right? I was talking with Ayush Prabhu, we were reflecting about like our japa just yesterday, and some of the points that we'd heard, picked up recently. Yeah, we were speaking about how Indra Prabhu said that every round we chant, we should chant as if it's as if we know that today is our last day and we're going to give up our bodies today. How would you chant if you knew that this was your last round? Every single round we should chant with that feeling. This is my last chance to chant Hare Krishna. And then when you get to that last 16th round, and you're really getting absorbed in that, he says, then we should chant 16 more rounds in the same mood. This is Indra Prabhu, so, just chanting 16 rounds attentively is difficult. But it's a minimum. So, like Dhruv Maharaj, if we are capable, we can increase our devotional service, our tapasya, because that will speed up the process. Krishna says that one who has amassed a lot of pious credits, they are like dry grass, that catches a light very quickly. So tapasya isn't the cause of devotional service. Actually, nothing can give us devotional service. There's the story of the milk drinking brahmachari, right, who tries to enter into the nighttime Sankirtan party of Mahaprabhu in the house of Srivas Thakur. And he's so absorbed in his only drinking milk, sankalpa, which he's had for his whole life. And Srivas sees this, and Srivas Thakur is amazed, He must be very pious, to be able to do that. So, out of compassion, this brahmachari has been begging him, please, please, please let me see what's going on in this house. I'm hearing all these noises, and hearing all these stories. I want to meet this personality. So he begs him for entrance into Srivas Thakur's house. And at first he says no, like Mahaprabhu has said, only devotees, only very intimate associates are allowed in here. So I don't want to go against that, I've seen what happens when Mahaprabhu gets angry. So you're not coming. But he's persistent, and out of compassion, devotees are very compassionate. He sneaks him in and hides him in the basket. And just as the kirtan is getting, fired up, Mahaprabhu stops everyone. What's going on? I'm not feeling the ecstasy today. It's not clicking, sometimes it just doesn't click. You're trying so hard, you're shouting louder than everyone else, screaming at the top of your lungs, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Crying like a baby, but there's nothing in here, We're trying so hard to make all this noise and call out to Krishna, but it's just not clicking. Mahaprabhu is feeling like that. And so he asks, did someone bring, an unqualified person into the kirtan? And immediately Srivas Thakur freaks out. He crumbles, Mahaprabhu, he knows everything. So he tells him, yeah, he brings out the brahmachari. I'm sorry. And Mahaprabhu is like, watch me smash his face, watch me beat him into a pulp. And the brahmachari freaks out and runs out the door. And he's just, as he's running away, he's thinking, how fortunate I am. He's completely humbled, that I have no qualification. I was reading this in a Bhakta Godhead magazine just recently, and they gave so many lists of quotes from Shastra about how no amount of tapasya, no amount of pious activity, fruit of activity, yajna, sacrifice, charity, nothing can give bhakti actually. Even Prahlad Maharaj, I was reading, it's really bewildering. So many of the things that we actually do as devotional service and we get really attached to doing, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that none of these will please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chanting secret mantras, living as a brahmachari in the ashram of the spiritual master. He lists so many things, cleanliness, so many things which we emphasize as super important. He says none of that is going to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When you hear that, you sort of get bewildered, like, so what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to please Krishna if everything I'm doing is not bona fide? Like, where does the bhakti come from? How am I going to get real bhakti? Not like this pretend bhakti where I'm wearing tilak and dhoti every day and learning all the language and reciting shlokas and impressing everyone with how loud and how desperately I'm screaming the Mahamantra. But like, if that's not giving me real bhakti, like real bhakti, where I know that I'm actually pleasing Krishna, and I actually have a genuine desire to engage in devotional service without material motives, without attracting attention, without getting some name, fame, feeling some sense of achievement, some sense of accomplishment. How can I get real bhakti? Where does that come from? And sometimes you read these lists of, this won't work, this won't work, this won't work, and you really realize how rare this thing is. It's very easy, right? We just have to chant Hare Krishna, and we just have to wake up early and attend the morning program. It's not like complicated, but it's very rare. Real bhakti, pure bhakti is very rare, and it can only be given. So this brahmachari is running away from this angry Mahaprabhu, and he's completely humbled, he feels like worthless. And in that state, he realizes how special that was, that Srivas Thakur gave him entrance, even just to get chastised, and even just to hear a tiny glimpse before Mahaprabhu's even gone into his ecstasy, just to have had that much. He's grateful. And Mahaprabhu, right, knowing that he was there, knowing that what Srivas Thakur was up to, knowing now what the brahmachari is thinking, he immediately goes out and calls him back. Right, so this gratitude and this humility for what we've received from all of these Vaishnavas who are giving us so much every day, so much opportunity to associate with Krishna, engage in service. Just a little bit of gratitude and humility for all of these Vaishnavas that we're surrounded by. Maybe real bhakti can arise in our hearts. Bhattu Dijraj Prabhu nicely in his class yesterday was explaining as well, so alright, it's very simple, it's very easy, but I also have a lot on my plate, right? Maybe, this kind of tapasya, this devotional service, all these activities, we can just do that later in life, can't we? We've heard, right, that there's a system, there's a varnashram dharma, right? Tapasya, that's for the vanaprasthas, isn't it? Sannyasis, they go into the forest, they live on simple things, they give up all of their possessions. So why are the Pracetas doing it now? They're not even married yet. They haven't even started procreating, filling up the world with population. Prahlad Maharaj explains that this devotional service, actually, it should be taught from the very beginning of life. That a brahmachari should grow up in the Gurukul, being trained in these principles, so that when they become a grahastha, or when they become a progenitor of this material world, if that's their dharma, then they've been trained, they've developed these brahminical qualities. So what are some of the qualities of a brahmana? Does anyone know any brahminical qualities? So these are some of the duties of a brahmana: to study the Vedas and to teach the Vedas to others, to worship the deity and to teach others how to worship the deity, to receive charity and then in the same day to give all of that back in charity. We also hear in the Bhagavad Gita, Shamo, Dhammo, Tapashocham. So Shama, one should be equipoised and see with equal vision. Right? So a brahmana is one who is very balanced, right, and peaceful. Dhamma, they should be doing austerity, tapasya, tapasya, socham, they should be clean. Kshantir, they should be tolerant. Arjavam, they should be truthful, right? They should be simple, straightforward. When we approach the devotees, we shouldn't have these ulterior hidden motives. We should be very, especially with our seniors, we should be revealing our mind without any hesitation. So these are some of the qualities of brahmanas, and one should be trained in these qualities in the beginning of life. And so similarly, the Pracetas, they've approached the spiritual master, Lord Śiva, and they've received this mantra from him so that they can purify themselves and develop the appropriate qualities, so that before they enter into that duty, that prescribed duty of procreation, they're ready. They don't get thrown away by the waves of material energy. We hear in the 8th canto about someone else who enters a lake or a body of water without doing that tapasya first. So Gajendra is the king of the elephants. I forgot the name of what island it is in the Bhumandala, but near the Milk Ocean, Gajendra is there. It's said that the Milk Ocean, when it washes up on the shores, it produces emeralds. And there's a great big mountain there with 3 peaks, and one peak is made of iron, one peak is made of silver, and one peak is made of gold. So it's a very fantastical place for us to imagine, just a couple of yojanas away on on Jambudweep, Bhumandala. But Gajendra is there, the king of the elephants, and he's sporting with all of his she-elephants, right? All of the wives and his cohort, the other big elephants that hang out with him. So they're walking through the forest, and they come to this beautiful lake, right? And they're very, very thirsty. They've been walking all day, so they dive into the water, and they drink and they enjoy with the pleasure, right? And there's lotus saffron has been poured out all over the water from the lotus flowers, and they're bathing, and it's a very pleasant experience for all of them. But then suddenly, out of nowhere, a crocodile comes and grabs the leg of Gajendra, and he's completely, seized, and he's being dragged underwater by the crocodile. And all of his she-elephants and his friends, right, they flee. There's nothing that they can do to help him. The crocodiles have come to snatch him up, and there's nothing that they can do. So Gajendra had taken shelter of his family and friends, but at the time of death, none of them could save him. Right? In contrast, the Pracetas, they've left the shelter of their father, and they've put on hold the duty for creating progeny, and they've focused solely on taking shelter of Krishna. And they're protected, they're underwater 10,000 years, no crocodiles attacking them. Right? So, like that, we see the importance of tapasya, the importance of devotional service, and the immediate necessity for it. Even Kulashekara Maharaj, he prays that the swan of his mind, right? Krishna tvadiya pada pankaja panjantam adyaiva me vishatu manasa raja hangsa, the swan of his mind, dive into the lake, right? The waters, to approach the lotus feet, or the stems of the lotus flower, which are the lotus feet of Krishna, and have its neck completely entangled in those stems, and immediately give up his life, right? So he's not even thinking about the future. He's like, let's do it right now, let's go. He's ready to go, because he knows that at the end of life, when the body when the soul is leaving the body, the body chokes up, and the kapha vata pitta, right, all the mucus and the phlegm and the different bodily ingredients are choking up, he might not be able to pronounce the holy name. So now, while I'm feeling love for you, O Krishna, while I'm remembering you, let me give up my life immediately, right? So it's a very urgent thing to practice devotional service. Similarly, I'm not sure the author, but yesterday Ayush Prabhu and I, we were talking about different insights we'd heard about how to do our japa properly, improve our japa, and he was sharing that one needs to understand the potency of the holy name. Otherwise, how are you going to be attentive? If you think, if you really realize that the holy name is giving you all of the results of any tapasya you can perform, right? 60,000 years or 60,000 Ashwamedha yajnas or something like that. I can't remember what Prabhupada said. But all of the goal of all study of the Vedas, right, is to know Krishna. Vedaisya sarva aham eva vedyo vedanta krit veda vedeva chaham. The goal of all tapasya is to please Krishna. Bhaktaram yagya tapasam. Right? The goal of everything that we can perform, all of our material activities, samsiddhir haritoshanam, is, varnashram dharma, is to please Krishna. So just by chanting the holy name, the goal of all of life, all different duties of life is achieved. And Brahmanam koti sankhyadikanam aishwaram yat chaitana vayaram saha. All of the knowledge that can be contained in millions of universes, all of the opulence that can be contained in millions of universes, right? All of us are seeking knowledge, opulence, right? That's like the natural inclination whenever we get distracted from devotional service. It's to increase our knowledge, increase our opulence. All of that is contained, actually even just a portion of what is found in the holy name exceeds all of that. Millions of universe of opulence and knowledge is contained in just a portion of the wealth of a holy name. So if we know that, His Holiness Vedavyas Priya Maharaj, in his beautiful classes on the different offenses to chanting, he's also making that point that one needs to understand the potency of the holy name, then naturally there will be attentiveness. And when there is attentiveness, one won't commit offenses. And His Holiness Vedavyas Priya Maharaj, he also has he sings this bhajan, Keno Hari Krishna Nam Hari Bole, in Melbourne, really nicely. There's one line there that Baner Pakire Dhari Raklam Hridoy Mandire. This bird which is like which is like my mind, again, like King Kulashekara said, this mind is like a forest bird, and I've been hiding a treasure in the chest of my heart, a very hidden treasure for this bird, this forest bird. Oh, come, forest bird, and find this treasure, which Madhu Maka E Harinam, which is this sweet, sweet holy name of Hari. Paki Re Sikai Le Sikhe. You can also chant this name if you are taught. Paki Sakal Nam Bolte Paro. You chant so many names, so, forest bird of my mind. So easily you're reciting so many different names, material names. If someone teaches you this name, this Madhumaka E Harinam, then you will be able to chant it. But Bolona, yeah, Bolona. Why? Yeah, he's asking what offenses have I caused in my previous life that this parrot, which is so good at chanting so many names, is unable to chant this holy name. Right, so finally, one more example. We hear from Bilva Mangal Thakur in his Govinda Damodar Stotram that, again, this time his tongue is like a swan. And he invites the swan, which is his tongue, to drink the nectar of the holy name. He says, my whole mouth has become like a lotus flower just because of the presence there of this holy name. Vichitra varna bharana birame bidehi vaktram bujaraja hankse sadamadiye rasane grarange govinda damodara madhaveti. Just by the name, the presence of this Govinda Damodar Madhavedi on my tongue, my whole mouth has become like a lotus flower, and my tongue has become like the swan trying to extract the nectar from that lotus flower. Right? So just drink the nectar of this beautiful holy name. So very simple for us, just chanting Hare Krishna, we can achieve all the results of so many austerities. And without that, all of that austerity is actually useless. So fortunately, the Pracetas are engaged in reciting this mantra given to them by Lord Śiva, their spiritual master, and they have found a very nice, secluded, quiet place to engage in that japa. For us, if we can do the austerity of rising early before Mangalarti and coming to the temple during the Brahma Muhurta, very peaceful, quiet time, then we can also absorb our minds attentively in the holy name. So if there's any questions there, I think we can finish up the class. Vishankar Prabhu. I don't think that specifically is one of them, but there might be something related, maybe. I'm not sure. As far as I understood from reading the chapter, I think Lord Shiva's instruction was simply to just recite the mantra And Lord Shiva himself came from that lake. He emerged from that lake with all of his associates. And it's described that that lake was like, it had the quality of the mind of a great yogi. It was very peaceful. So yeah, as we said, in Bhagavad Gita we hear that one who has amassed a lot of pious credits, they take up devotional service very quickly. It's like dry grass catching on fire. So similarly, if we perform devotional service in a sattvic environment, with sattvic qualities which we've cultivated, it's like a springboard for our devotional service. So in that sense, they would be, serving the instructions of Lord Śiva. By entering the lake, they'd be much more absorbed in that mantra. What's that? I'm not sure the name of the other. There's another yogi who also does his austerity underwater. Shobri Muni. So I think it might be a common practice back in Satya Yuga as well. When pranayama is much more, yogic processes are much more prominent. They have the pranic capacity. Like that guy I met on book distribution, 10 minutes, pretty good. Maybe you can recite the whole Rudra Gita once. But yeah, just come to the temple at 5:15 and chant Hare Krishna, you'll be fine. Alright. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki, Amal Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki, Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Srila Gurudev Iskon Guru Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.